So Resident Evil Village is finally here, the 8th mainline entry in the classic survival horror franchise. And as I've said before, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, so I've been very excited for this game. This game didn't totally wow me right out of the gate, and for the first few hours, I felt like maybe I wasn't gonna like it as much as I wanted to. But things picked up quite a bit, and I found myself really having fun the longer the game went on. There are a number of things I wasn't in love with in this game, but a lot of them were front-loaded into the first couple of hours. For one, I feel like the high volume of cutscenes really drags this game down. Maybe I've been spoiled by the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, but I would rather have less talking and more walking, if you know what I mean. Resident Evil as a franchise doesn't really have the best scripts or the best plots, but usually things are corny enough that they're charming. But here, for some reason, the dialogue got really annoying, and I'm someone who finds Resident Evil dialogue to be pretty cute. I usually really like the over-the-top line delivery, but some of the shit Ethan says in this game is so lame, it got on my nerves a little bit.
Dead body?
Maybe it's because he doesn't really have the charm of Leon or Chris. Most of the time, he really feels like a normal dude in this insane scenario, and while that would be pretty interesting, and I do like that trope, it doesn't really fit here. He has way more of a character in this game, but most of the shit he has to say is just, what the hell?
What the hell? What the hell happened here? Where the hell am I? What the hell was that? What the hell is wrong with this place? What the hell? What the hell? Can someone please tell me what the hell?
This game has the over-the-top setting of 4, but without the over-the-top characters. The villains make up for it a little bit, but Ethan really stands out as being way too normal. I'm not saying make Ethan a goofball, but at least give him a little bit more of a personality.
Why is everyone dying on me?
But anyway, each section of this game features a new level with a new gameplay loop, and it feels like a different game every time you explore a new area, and that's one thing that I really liked. The Lady D castle is reminiscent of classic Resident Evil, with you backtracking through spooky corridors to find puzzle materials, all while being constantly chased by the denizens of the castle. Then after the castle, the game changes significantly and it opens up a lot. You get to go back through the village that you explored in the early parts of the game, and I really love how every time you go back to the village, it gets more and more fucked up. There's also a big incentive to exploring in this game. You get new weapons and unlockables constantly, and I felt like the exploration was done perfectly in this one. And overall, each area is unique and fun to explore just for these reasons alone. And then after the castle and the village, there's this cool escape room style level where you get your weapons taken away, and it was the one part of the game that actually scared the shit out of me. The game is constantly throwing new shit at you, and I never found myself getting bored, because if you're at a part that you don't like so much, it'll probably still throw something new at you. Like a lot of people said, the factory level was lame and too long, but I didn't really mind it because it kept throwing new enemy types in, and it kept me on my toes. Another addition I really enjoyed in this game was the Merchant. The Duke in this game is like the RE4 Merchant, except this time he has a place in the story, and I think this single-handedly makes him the superior Merchant. It's a small thing, but making him actually help you on your journey and hearing all the stuff he has to say about the world really adds a level of personality that I greatly appreciated. He's actually like a part of the world, and I like him. He's my little bestie. But now I think it's time to talk about the gameplay, because the gameplay has me feeling kinda conflicted. This game brings back the first-person gameplay of RE7, and after the last 2 RE releases, I think I just don't really like the first-person camera as much for a game like this. I get the first person is scarier, but this isn't really trying to be a horror game that much. Controlling Ethan doesn't always feel like I'm playing a Resident Evil game. Like, yeah, I'm doing puzzles and collecting weird shit and shooting zombies, but it doesn't feel right to me for some reason. I'll also chalk it up to the fact that I was playing on mouse and keyboard, and a lot of my friends said it feels a lot better on controller, so when I go and replay it on controller, maybe that opinion will change. However, I will say that for me, I think the gameplay does improve as the game goes on. The game opens up with a really difficult survival section where they throw waves upon waves of enemies at you, and I played this on the hardest difficulty, and I had a fair bit of trouble here. But over the course of the game, you do feel Ethan becoming stronger, and it is kind of cathartic being able to just tear through enemies in the later segments. But I will say that I think the most well-balanced part of the game is definitely in the first third in Lady D's castle. I wasn't fully enjoying the game up until this point. Like, the first hour or two kinda dragged for me. The story really wasn't hooking me, that part with the villagers was kinda dumb. But once I got to the castle, everything changed. This is where the game really begins. I would say that this section doesn't really last as long in the grand scheme of things, but it definitely stands out as feeling distinctly Resident Evil. The atmosphere is key here, and the gothic horror vibe is perfect for this game. You explore every inch of the castle, from spooky catacombs to the fancy art rooms, to the rooftops that are swarming with flying vampires. And I'm sure a lot of people saw the trailers and thought that this was going to be where you spend most of the game. But no, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and I kind of like that. I know a lot of people wish that this was the whole game, but personally, I like the variety in gameplay. However, it was in this castle that I found my biggest problem with this game. I think the enemies are just too stupid. As I said, in this level, the main threat is that you are being constantly pursued by invincible, unkillable vampire women. And as everybody has already pointed out, it is kind of sexy.
Warm, wet, bright red blood.
Oh, don't catch me. Oh, no. But the issue is that the enemies are so dumb and easy to manipulate that it kind of makes them less scary and less threatening. To illustrate my point, I'm going to show you guys a technique that I like to call the Tallahassee Shuffle. That name doesn't mean anything, I just think it sounds funny. This is a technique where you find a piece of unbreakable terrain and you basically run in a circle around it so the enemy can't get to you. Most of the time, their attacks will just hit the terrain and you'll be okay. If you encounter one of these unkillable enemies, you can just run back, lead them to a wide open area where there's some terrain, and then just Tallahassee shuffle your way around them and continue on your way. Now let me get this clear right off the bat. I think this is a very boring way to play a game. However, this game makes you do this. This game has countless scenarios where this is the solution. Most of the boss fights are built around the Tallahassee Shuffle. The first time Lady D chases after you, it's in an area where you have to do the Tallahassee Shuffle over and over again and trick her into following the route that you want her to follow. This makes her seem stupid, and it makes her seem less scary. To illustrate my point further, I'm going to use Resident Evil 2 Remake as an example. In that game, the areas you explore are usually made up of narrow corridors. This is very important for a game like this, because that means when you encounter an enemy, you are forced to face it head on. You can't drag it back to another room with a big open area, because that's not a thing in this game. It's very claustrophobic. You have to either fight the enemy or find a way around it, and usually that means you're gonna get hit. It literally forces you to face your fears, and I think that is genius. And when you first encounter Mr. X, of course it is in a narrow corridor. And yes, you can lead him back outside to make some space between you and him, but there's notably no debris outside for you to hide behind. And if you're a fucking coward and you run too far back, you're gonna corner yourself and get your ass beat. He also has moves where he will literally shove you aside if you try to walk past him. And this makes him much scarier and more iconic. But in Resident Evil 8, every other room is a wide open space with things to hide behind. So if you're exploring and you get jumped by Lady D or one of the bug girls, you always have a place where you can lead them to and just give them the old Tallahassee Shuffle and make it out unscathed. It makes sense for mindless hulking behemoths like Mr. X and Nemesis to just beeline straight for you because they're literally programmed to hunt you down and not even think about it. It's part of the story. But these are characters with motivations and personalities, and watching them get easily manipulated and juked around like fucking Scooby-Doo villains makes them feel less like characters and more like dumb video game zombies. Remember that really cool, scary escape room level that I told you about? It spends the whole time building tension, and it makes you feel like there's a big scare coming up. And then when you finally encounter the main threat of that area, the way you get away from it is by leading it back to a big open room with a table in the middle and giving it the old Tallahassee Shuffle.
You know what this calls for? The old Tallahassee Shuffle. Works every time. See you later, kiddo.
It was pretty disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. Especially since there's a part in that same level where you can hide under a bed to avoid the enemy, and I was surprised that this kind of stuff wasn't used more often. Ethan can crouch really low, but he's never forced to hide under anything other than at this part. I think incorporating new ways to avoid enemies would have made hiding a lot more intense and exciting. A good chunk of this game features you trying to avoid big, scary, unkillable enemies, but there's never really a fun or creative way to do so. But that being said, there are a lot of times later on in the game when you get some unique encounters. And like I said, I had more fun as the game went on. One boss destroys the terrain, so you can't really hide behind shit. There's also a battle arena where you fight a giant and some werewolves in a tiny, cramped cave. The game does get away from the Tallahassee Shuffle as it goes on, and I did appreciate that, but in the early parts of the game, it was always in the back of my head. But with all that being said, I do still think I liked the game. I may have my problems with some parts of the execution, but overall, I do enjoy the game a lot. I had fun in just about every level, and I really didn't expect to be able to say that. And plus, I'm definitely going to be replaying this game on a PS5 to get a better picture of it and try to explore what else it has to offer, because as we know, Resident Evil games are meant to be replayed over and over again. So this may not be my favorite Resident Evil game, but I still think it's a pretty good one, and I'm still excited to play it again and find things that I missed the first time. It has really good atmosphere, the graphics are on like another fucking level, the enemies are already iconic even before the game even came out, and has a lot of spicy fan service that I didn't even want to spoil in this video. It's hard not to compare every game to Resident Evil 2 Remake, because I think that really is the perfect Resident Evil experience. If you have not played a Resident Evil game and you want to, play that one. But even if this game doesn't really reach that level, it still does have a lot of unique elements that makes it stand out. So I'm going to give Resident Evil 8 a 7 out of 10.
Stupid man thing!
Fine, I'll
You
go
won't
up!
live long, even if you run!
Bye, bitch! She walked away, she's like, fuck this! She's like, fuck, you got in the elevator! God damn it!